Good morning. Let's look at Big Idea C from Chapter 1, Section 7. Here we're going to solve an equation by completing the square. Now, what we have to do is actually extend upon what we did in Big Idea B. But first, we have something that's added to the end. We're going to move that over to the other side first. So we're going to subtract 4. So now I have x squared minus 12x equals a negative 4. Now I want to find out what my c value would be here. And remember that we took our b value, we divided it by 2, and then we squared it to get our c value. So we have x squared minus 12x, and here I'm going to add 36. Now whatever I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other side of the equation. So I'm going to rewrite what I have here into my factors, x minus 6, x minus 6. And if I have a negative 4 plus 36, that's going to give me 32. So I can rewrite that as x minus 6 squared equals 32. Now I need to find the square root of both sides. So I'm going to take x minus 6 equal to, I'm going to erase a little bit of that part there, and equals 32, taking the square root of that side. Now remember, when you take the square root of a square, you just get what was inside. We need to figure out what the factors are of 32. So I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So I have a pair here and a pair here. So I have plus or minus 2 times 2, square root of 2. And we have the x minus 6. Now we need to get the x by itself, so we're going to add 6 to both sides. So now I have an answer of plus or minus 4 square root 2 plus 6. So if I was thinking about my factors, I could have 4 square root 2 plus 6, or I could have a negative 4 square root 2 plus 6. And those would be my solutions by completing the square. Let's look at another example. Here, the first thing I want to think about, is there a greatest common factor? There is. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. So I'm going to get x squared plus 4x plus 7. Now if I look at that, there's nothing that I can think of that multiplies to 7 and adds to 4. So we have to complete the square. So I'm going to subtract the 7 over to the other side. So now we have x squared plus 4x equals a negative 7. Now I want to complete the square here, so I'm going to take 4 divided by 2 and square it. So that's going to give me x squared plus 4x plus, that would be 2 square root of 4 equals a negative 7. Now remember, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So now let's factor this. X plus 2, x plus 2 equals a negative 3. So here I'm going to take x plus 2 squared equal to a negative 3. And now we have to take the square root of both sides. Now remember, yesterday we were dealing with the square roots of negative numbers. So let's take the square root of that side and the square root of that side. So remember, when you have a square root and a square, they undo each other, so we get x plus 2 equals plus or minus. Now we have a negative inside there, so I'm actually going to pull out an I and the square root of 3. Now I need to get the x by itself, so I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. So I'm going to get plus or minus I square root of 3 minus 2. So that means I could have two different x values. I could have I square root 3 minus 2, or I could have a negative I square root 3 minus 2. And let's look at another example. Here's our greatest common factor. Nope. So now let's get this over to the other side. So we have x squared minus 10x equals a negative 1. So we know we can take that number 10 divided by 2 and square it. So we have x squared minus 10x. And a negative 10 divided by 2 would be 5. 5, or negative 5. Negative 5 squared would give me 25. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Now let's factor this. And let's combine our like terms. So we can rewrite this. Now we have to take the square root of both sides. So we know when we have a square root, the undo is square, so we're going to get x minus 5. And you're going to get plus or minus the square root of 23. 23 is a prime number, so you have to leave it the way it is. So let's add 5 to both sides. So we're going to get x equals plus or minus the square root of 23 plus 5. So our x value could equal the square root of 23 plus 5, or the negative square root of 23 plus 5. Those are our two solutions for that equation. Let's look at another example. Here, if you look at this, is there a greatest common factor? Can we divide all those numbers by 3? And we can, so let's do it. So I'm going to get x squared minus 12x plus 50 equals 0. Now this isn't a perfect square trinomial, so we're going to move this part over to the other side. We want to find our c value, so we're going to take a negative 12 over 2 and square it. I guess that would be where we want to go. Minus 12x, and then we're going to have a negative 6 squared to be 36 equals a negative 50. Remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So now let's factor this. X minus 6, x minus 6 equals a negative 50 plus 36, so negative 14. We want to rewrite this. Now we want to take the square root of both sides. So that's going to give me x minus 6 plus or minus, and because it was a negative, I'm going to pull an I out. And 14 doesn't have any pairs that I can pull out, so I'm going to leave that the way it is. So we're going to add 6 to both sides. So we can have two answers. We can have I square root of 14 plus 6, or we could have a negative I square root of 14 plus 6. Those are all of our examples for today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.